Trey kept a journal while we were there, and so some of his slides, I don't know if the background has changed, so we can't see Trey's words. This was the host church there in the Philippines, the Fishers of Christ Alliance.
This was the blackout they had?
Yes, there was power outages. But they took great care of us. They fed us 3 square meals a day. Very grateful for that. They also served as our interpreters the whole time we were there. There it is. So these are Trey's journal entries. This is Pastor William down here on the left. He's the pastor for Fishers of Christ Church. He's really the one spearheading the work being done in the Paradise Village. It's him and his crew that Fishers of Christ. They've had some great guest lecturers. They're really the ones spearheading all the work in Paradise Village. They've been holding Bible studies there for some time, which is one of the reasons where they identified the need for actual church building to congregate. So this is largely their youth group as well as us.
And the youth group, they were our translators during the VBS, so they were a very big help. That was their week off of school, and they spent it with us translating our lessons for that week. So in particular, that's Micah on the left, and he was doing magic tricks, and all of the kids were around and just watching.
We're going to point out the few that he does have, right?
Definitely. So Fishers of Christ Church. We got a chance to meet Mary's brother that she hasn't seen in a long time. That's Tito Ray, Kuya Ray. So that was a blessing.
Mm-hmm.
Should point out, so this is the primary means of transportation for many people. This sidecar and the motorcycle, you can fit 5, 7 people, 9, if you're creative. So this is Michael and Sarah's house. They're actually right around the corner from the Fishers of Christ Alliance Church. So,
And they have to deadlock all the doors that we have because it's very, see that's a house right there. They have to have bars over everything because their possessions will get stolen if they don't.
so this is Navotas itself, where Fishers of Christ is. Paradise Village is a few miles away, but we spent quite a bit of time walking around Navotas, meeting people on the streets, just kind of getting a feel for what their day-to-day lives really look like. Obviously, poverty is a big deal there, and Fishers of Christ Church periodically rallies large food supplies, package it up, and take it out to people. And so that's what we see here is we have bags and backpacks filled with these bags of food, several pounds of rice, the equivalent of top ramen, which is a big delicacy. They're all very appreciative. They'd often show us their houses. Very welcoming, friendly, warm people. Point out right here, a little stamp above the doorway. That's the Census Bureau labeling the residents, meaning that these people have been counted in the census, which is interesting when you see conditions like this.
So this is where we did the feeding. This is under the bridge. It's hard to tell because the pictures are so dark under there. But that little ladder there leads up to, so here, I'm trying to figure out a good way of explaining this. But the way it's built is the bridge is kind of like this underneath, and then they put 2x4s and plywood underneath. So there's about 3 feet of crawl space, maybe, probably more like 2.5 feet. But they live up there, and there's actually families that live right underneath the bridge. And so that's where we did a lot of the feeding when we were out there.
So even in these makeshift houses built into the bridge itself, you'll see that Census Bureau stamp, which I thought was really interesting. We also had the opportunity to go to my father's house, which is in a nearby town. 2 of the missionaries that went with us were actually they had actually spent time in the orphanage itself, and they were adopted by people here locally in Idaho. And so they had the opportunity to go back to the Philippines and visit the orphanage where they had lived.
That is the entrance to Paradise Village. So on the other side of that canal, that is considered Paradise Village, but it just goes way back, and it's all, pretty much built with trash. It's really sad, but...
This is one of the main streets in the Paradise Village. Some of the nicer parts of Paradise Village. There's several stores. A lot of these houses are...
Yeah, so this is the entrance right here. That's the biggest it gets, pretty much. And then it kind of just tapers down and then into little paths.
So these are some of the kids that we taught the VBS. We held a VBS there in Paradise Village. You can see the main walkway that we're passing through there on the left. Just trash everywhere. A lot of standing water, open sewage.
And so during the VBS, right here on the left, that is the games, and then the one that was next to it was crafts. And you want to talk about that?
Yeah, well, okay, so the way we had to do it, I don't know if anyone explained, is there were 100 plus kids, so we had to split them up because there's no big enough space in Paradise Village. There's no big enough space in Paradise Village to hold 120 plus kids or whatever. So we split it up into 5 groups and did separate, and then we just rotated them. So one of the games that we did was just like a version of Duck, Duck, Goose, and we did it with water, though, which, they have to pay for it, and I didn't realize that. And so we were using their water for the longest time, thinking that it was free, We paid them back because we didn't realize that, but they had a blast, and that's really what mattered.
So there were games, there were Bible stories, there was a song station where we all sing songs and teach them songs. And what was the last one?
Songs, crafts, games, story.
And crafts. Crafts was the one I was forgetting. This is the church building itself. As you can see, maybe in some of those other pictures of Paradise, the pathways are very small. People are crammed in any way possible. And so there's no way to get a vehicle back to where the actual church building is being constructed. So all the building materials were delivered to the entrance of Paradise Village and then had to be physically carried maybe a quarter mile back to the church building itself. So that's us packing bricks. So the church building itself it's 2 stories, ground floor for the congregation. There's a loft upstairs where the minister or the preacher is going to eventually live when they identify a full-time minister, as well as a school classroom where they can teach some of the kids in Paradise Village, the alphabet, kind of basic education. The first service was held there on New Year's Day, if I'm not mistaken. There's Michael and Pastor William giving a lesson. Our last night there, they put together several songs. So they fed us dinner. They put on a little presentation. They sang to us, just to show their gratitude for us caring enough to go all that way and help them in so many ways to make their dreams and in fact God's mission a reality. So it was very touching. You guys want to just go one by one? So, I don't know. I guess you want to start?
I have notes prepared, so if you want me to start, you guys
Go for it. I'm winging it.
I wasn't sure how we were going to do this, so I just kind of threw a bunch of notes together. So I got an email, and I was told basically to come prepared for a bunch of questions. Well, 3 questions from Kevin Skidmore. And the first question was, what has God taught you through this experience? And for me, it was really just how blessed we are here, I never, thought of my family as a rich family, but going out there, you know that there's poverty, that's that bad, where there's people like sleeping on the streets, literally, but you don't really connect the two, until you actually go see it, and see people the same age as you, with nothing at all, and so that was really the difference, that, even though I wasn't rich growing up, I still had, necessities, things that I need every day, toilet paper, a sink, anything like that. They don't have these things. So it was really, humbling to see that. I want to tell you guys a story about this guy that that Mike and I saw. So we hired some locals out there to do some of the building on the church because there weren't enough of us, and we don't know. They have an entirely different building system out there. They don't build things the same way we do, because if they did, the typhoon would come and it would just destroy it because the walls aren't, So we had to hire some people out there to help us, in the construction. Well, one day Mike and I went out there to kind of just oversee, make sure everything was getting done, because we had like 7 7 workers working that day. So we went out there just to check, because I can't remember what everyone else was doing. We had a bunch. The group was split. We were doing different things, but our job was to just check, make sure stuff was getting done at the church. Anyway, one of the workers there, Mike picked up a 2x4 and was like handing it to him to help him, And as soon as he did that, he said, "This is for poor people only. Like, this job is for poor people only." And both Mike and I looked at each other and were like, "What?" Like, for someone to tell like us 19-year-olds, and this guy was like 26, for him to tell us 19-year-olds, that you can't work because you're rich, that was really, it hit me really, really hard. And so I thought about that I thought about that for a long time, and we ended up helping him anyway. We told him we're the same, we're flesh and blood, and exactly the same. So that was one of the main experiences for me. So let's see. The second question, what do you see differently now after the experience? I would say miracles, because like everyday life here, there's miracles if you look for them, definitely. I definitely believe that. But it's harder to see them until you need them, If you need a miracle, that's when you're actually really looking for a miracle. And when I was out there, the environment just pretty much forces you to need miracles every day, to be able to reach these people that are really hard to reach. And so that was one thing that I really saw out there. Third question, how has God worked through you through this experience? I guess he just gave me a chance to be a part of something much bigger than myself. Because, back before I left, it was just a routine of going to work, saving money, going to work, saving money, and then going to work and saving money. And it just kept going. It's the same list over and over again. And then you realize there's a lot more to be done in the world with your life. And so it just really helped me with that. I want to finish off with a scripture, James 1:27. It says, "Pure and undefiled religion before God and the Father is this, to visit orphans and widows in their trouble and to keep oneself unspotted from the world." And that kind of just wraps up my journey to the Philippines. So thank you.
So I'm not very talkative. Probably not going to take up half the time he did. So I'm just going to go through a few interesting things I saw and then how it applied to me. So a few kind of lighter notes. Just the overall culture shock. Like, they have these sayings and phrases and stuff like that that they think we use all the time. One of them, the most common one, is "Hey Joe." So you will be walking down the street, and someone will walk past you, and he'll be like, "Hey Joe," and just because you're white, I mean, they don't see those. They don't see people with white skin very often, and so they'll just be like, "Whoa, hey Joe, what's up? What's up, bro?" So that was kind of interesting, just to kind of see that. A few other things. Like he mentioned, the poverty. Like, you'll just see random people just sleeping on the streets because they don't really have anywhere else to go. And then there's just like, you'll see people with like these, like, they're sleeping on cardboard under like these blankets and stuff like that on the side of the road, and just like, you look under and there's just like 5 people in this like square yard of space with like 2 feet maybe of crawl space. So it's really interesting to see that, like, they literally have nothing, and they're making the best that they can, and yet it's just really humbling to see that they are really happy there a lot of the time. I mean, obviously they're not happy all the time. I mean, I wouldn't be. But it's just really cool to see that they're like, they still find happiness in a lot of their circumstances. Like, they have nothing and they're still just happy to see that there's someone trying to help you, and it's really cool. That, and another thing that struck me was just when we were doing the VBS, like, I was expecting, kids, the kids they would sit still and they would intently like listen to you, and it was so different, because like, I think of kids with like that here, I mean, it's not to say that they don't, it's just they don't have anything to do, they don't have any like entertainment, they don't have anything like that, and so when you come over and you get on the ground dressed like a sheep or whatever, and they're just like all over it. They're so excited that that you're hanging out with them, and yeah, it's really cool how they pay attention and really try to learn as much as they can. It's pretty humbling.
Okay. One of my fondest memories was a day that I was in crafts. We hadn't prepared the crafts beforehand, and so we were there, and kind of, I was getting nervous because we had like 20 minutes before the kids started coming, and so I felt like frantically trying to cut all of the little cups and just getting ready, and there were the teens there, and they just jumped in and they just started helping. I didn't realize at the time that our VBS was for kids, like the cutoff was 13, and so that's why they couldn't go. I was encouraging them to go, but they're like, no, no. But they stayed, and they were helping us, and they're just so, that really touched me, that the teenagers and, their willingness to help, and let's see, that, and, one of the older ladies, she was helping, like she was there helping too, and I was just like, I made a big point, like, please, we cannot lose the scissors, like, because there were so many of us that it was kind of hard to keep track of things, but in the end, like, we didn't lose anything, and like we had one less pair of scissors, but I think we started off that way. But she was so apologetic, and she was like looking for, that pair of scissors, and I just thought that was really nice that she, like she really cared, and we cleaned up afterwards, and so that was really nice. I think the biggest, what I came away with was, I guess I learned a lot about myself. I was put into a situation like way out of my comfort zone. Before I left, I was very nervous about having to speak in public and to bear my testimony or just to witness. And so the whole time there, I was just nervous and just anticipating that moment, to happen. But I realized that God, He places things when you're ready and not until then. Because there were several days I was just, one of the missionary leaders, he told us, in the airport, he was like, whatever you do not have any expectations, because the moment that you do, you kill anything of God's plans. And so I was trying not to have that expectation, but in the back of my head, I was just like, when am I going to get the opportunity to, to have a testimony moment or something? And so I was kind of getting bogged down on that, but then I realized that once I was ready, God gave me that opportunity, and it was a Sunday, that same day, we were asked a couple of days before to share our testimony, and that same day we went to the cemetery. They do what is it called? Dia de los Muertos, and so the loved ones of the dead, they'll go to the cemeteries. It's like this big festival, everyone goes, there's music playing, and then they bring food, and they leave it at their loved ones' grave sites. And on the way there, I was just kind of thinking about, we had a bracelet, which y'all seen before, but we use those to help share testimonies, what the colors mean, and so I was practicing that on the way there, and so it just so happened that there was one lady who was very curious. She was like, so what are y'all doing? What church are y'all from? And so I took that moment, and with the Lord's help, the Lord presented it to me, and so I went, and I wasn't nervous, and I was at peace, and the whole time I was like, thank you, Lord. It was, I don't know, it just felt very good to what I told everyone later that I really felt like a Christian that day. I've read my testimony and I bared witness, and that was very nice. And so another thing about being taken out of your comfort zone, I realized then, I don't think I prayed that much, to God, and just gave Him all my worries as much as I did. And I'm naturally a warrior, and so I thought I really felt close to God that time. I was relying on Him, and I could just feel whenever I was worrying, my stomach was knotting up, and then I would pray, and then it would just go away. And so that really touched me a lot too. And so what has, I think, changed? Well, And so another thing that I learned about myself, I have been going through this like soul searching for a while now, actually, just trying to find like my career path and just like what I'm supposed to be doing. And I see those young, the youth, they are so motivated and just lit up by Christ and just wanting to do good work and just being out there. They all want to be like teachers or missionaries, and they know at such a young age like their call. And so I didn't realize it at the time, but God helped me see that when I got back, I was kind of depressed. Like I kind of felt like I did so much there, and then I came back, and now like I'm still like searching, and yet they know what they want to do. And so I realized that God was showing me that I was being, what's the word? Discontent, I guess. And so I thought what you said today about like praying and making your plans, like pray about it and talk to God about it. And so that's what I've been doing. But yeah, so it's all a process and just working on that. Okay.
All right, so when I was getting ready to go, we did a lot of fundraising and a lot of outreach. I was talking to one of my best friends who was a scientist in eastern Idaho, and I was asking, do you want to say anything? And he's spiritual, but he has very little faith in organized religion. And he said, I love you, I support you in whatever you decide to do, but I can't contribute any money to build a building on the other side of the world. I just don't see how that's going to change anything. And I was like, okay. And I prayed about it, and I thought about it. And, even then, well, let me take a step back, actually. I feel most at peace, I feel closest to God when I'm out in nature. A lot of times that means solitude, tranquility, and thinking about the Philippines, depending on where you look, Metro Manila, the area where we were, is, in terms of population density, it's either number 4 or number 7 in the world for the highest population densities. And when I was there, I was thinking back to what my friend said, and just providing those people with a building to pray, to worship, to find a little bit of solitude and commune with God, that to me is priceless, and to reiterate what pretty much everyone has said, we're all humbled by how blessed we truly are. And so just being able to help them in identifying, setting aside a space, a sacred space, I believe that will be a long-lasting effect, contribution that will help solidify this community in God's will, and I'm just very grateful to have been a part of that. Having said that, I feel like this mission trip helped me possibly more than it helped them, to be honest. Like Mary said, like they pointed out, those people, they have nothing, and like one reason why we wanted to do a slideshow is because pictures say 1,000 words, and that was just a small snippet. A lot of times I didn't take pictures of what we were seeing because I felt bad. It's like, this is people's lives, and we're taking a picture and it's like, oh, look how terrible this is. But those are people's lives. They have lived in these conditions for generations. And so I felt bad just kind of taking pictures and, even just thinking like, oh, how terrible this is. And at the same, I'm having these thoughts in my head, this is terrible, these terrible conditions. and the people themselves beaming. They are grateful for anything and everything, even if it's just a few moments of your time. You know, the children there, I think Jaden was kind of getting at this. The kids there were remarkable. I have never seen children show so much respect to the elders all the time. It's kuya, and po, which are both respectful terms. I've never been blessed by so many kids. Like, they just come by, they grab your hand and put it on their forehead, and that's a blessing. It just, you know, takes the breath away, really. So, you know, in a lot of ways, I feel like they taught me how to demonstrate my faith. I tend to be a very quiet, you know, person, very introverted, and so being in one of the most populous places in the world definitely took me out of my comfort zone. And again, just really makes me feel blessed and humbled, and I just feel blessed to have been able to contribute to God's work. And thank you all for the opportunity, for your prayers and your support. That's always appreciated. So thank you all.